It's all you, Paula.
Okay, sounds good. Today, the Arts Commission, Committee for Antiracism and Equity, and Metro Arts staff are joining by conference call. In a moment, we will call roll of all members present. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available to the public no later than 48 hours after the meeting. Any action items decided by consensus at today's meeting will be reconfirmed at the next in-person meeting of the committee. So now I will roll call each of the members present. So if you would please say whether or not you're here. Aaron.
I'm here.
Alandis.
Present.
Ellen.
Present.
John.
Present.
Jonathan.
Present.
Terry. Here. Hold on, sorry. And Will.
Present.
Thank you. I will now call for a motion that the meeting agenda constitutes essential business of this body and meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans considering the COVID-19 outbreak and is permitted under the governor's executive order number 65. I will need someone to propose a motion to this effect.
This is Terry.
Thank you. I need a second.
Second.
Second, that was
Jonathan Marks.
Jonathan, thank you. Okay. If anyone has any comments on this motion, please let me know and I'll call on you. All right, seeing no comments, we'll do a roll call vote to adopt the telephonic meeting. Aaron.
Okay.
Alandis.
Yay.
Ellen.
Yay.
John.
Yay.
Jonathan.
Yay.
Terry.
Yes.
Will.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you all so much. So I know that there was some email going back and forth about whether or not to remove the informational session for today. Is that what everybody would like to do, or do we want to go through the informational session?
I'm happy to read the informational session.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
I'm happy to forgo the informational session.
Okay, thank you.
This is John. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Aaron.
This is Sarah. I am.
Okay. Okay.
This is Alandis. I'm happy to forego it too.
This is Terry. I agree.
Okay.
This is Ellen. I agree.
Okay, thank you.
I agree.
Okay, so it seems as though we have consensus on foregoing the item B on our agenda. So we'll move to item C. And as you know, when we met on November 4th, we have gone through some of these, but we can kind of start on this list, and we'll start with the the reviewing the data of the organization and workflow changes. We'll discuss our work groups. We'll do a grant guidelines update if needed. We'll look at HR issues and then the public comment and notice policies, as well as receive an update on equity-related programming and then staff updates as well. And then any additional topics that we might want to explore. So with that, is there anyone who wants to facilitate any of these items?
Paula, I have started working on a work group spreadsheet that might help kind of guide that conversation around organization, and kind of structure for kind of some of the tasks that we've got. And I kind of used Aaron's PowerPoint as well as John and Ellen's to kind of populate that. So that could be helpful, and I'd be happy to kind of at least get that started.
Okay, thank you, Trey. Anyone else?
I don't know if I'm the right person to facilitate, but in regards to the opening files of ex-employees and the public comment and public notices, I'm happy to be sort of represent the staff part of that. And we also have Ian Myers here, who's our finance and operations manager, to answer some of those questions.
Okay, thank you, Grace.
This is Ellen for the grant guidelines update. I don't know if it needs anything, but Janine, I had to leave the meeting early, but Janine might be able to update that if there's anything.
Yep, I'm happy to provide the updates.
Okay, fantastic. So I think then we've got everything covered. Trey, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Is it possible that I could share my screen?
Yeah, let me stop sharing. Would it be possible to make
I could send it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, hold on.
Thank you. We'll just play hot potato.
Thank you very much. Awesome. Are you all able to see my screen?
Yes.
Quote of the year.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Thank you. Cool. So basically, I've kind of taken the 4 initiatives and kind of categories that Aaron broke the work down into, and kind of we have a column for purpose, and then just kind of starting to look at each task that we've started to think about and dividing them into short-term and long-term, and then the resources needed in order to complete these tasks. And it's really not that different from the content, but it's kind of all here to kind of look at. And then another aspect that wasn't kind of one of those 4 between training, equity programs, and project policy, and then internal and external analysis was just the committee health and team life slide, and just kind of making sure we establish operating procedures and also how the C.A.R.E committee will interact with the Board of Commissioners. So I don't know if we wanted to kind of go through each section and just kind of evaluate the purpose, and I don't know if kind of dividing some of these casts, and Aaron, feel free to kind of correct me if this isn't kind of what you were looking for, but yeah, I guess we can start with the internal analysis. So that's basically looking at our policies and practices internally, and kind of seeing what work can we do within this C.A.R.E to improve those. So the short term would be looking at our restorative practices, defining specifically what that means, and then reviewing our employee handbook. I think long term, and I didn't type this, but would be more so, looking at hiring procedures and things like that. And then for external, we would include all of our policies and programs that are with external partners and artists. So that would be looking at public art processes, grant processes, any funding opportunities that we have. And then equity programs and project policy in that group, really making sure we're engaging with the public around this work, as well as communication was a key thing, and making sure that, we have space for them to come and share their opinion on the work we're doing, and then also that we're able to explain to them what we're doing and how it impacts their opportunities to interact with us. And then finally, training was a thing that I think was one of the 4 things that were most important. So just any general thoughts and feedback about organizing it this way and starting to look in these 4 categories as specific areas, and kind of trying to divide the work within these 4.
This is John. I feel like this is super clear. And also, I think that the way that it's divided, it gets a chance, it allows for the opportunity to expand upon each category as well. So that's one of the things that I really like. And so, yeah, I think that it's divided very well.
Thanks, John. And then, yeah, there was a couple of things I cleaned up, just some of the stuff we've talked about, so just events and things like the information sessions that I guess would fall under team life, community health and team life. And then some of those programs that we encourage each other to attend and share with each other as well.
Could you? Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm seeing everything.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good.
I forget I'm screen sharing.
You're fine. I mean, I agree with what John said. Like, I think it is really clear, and I think it gives us enough room to like add to each of those working, like those categories feel large enough to be added to, but also, focused enough that like it really allows us to kind of hone in on what we're kind of already doing or wanting to do. So I like the breakout of it as well, and the organization of it as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to add it to the SharePoint too, so anyone can make any adjustments or edits. And I guess that's also something if we do use something like this, we have to monitor the way we do make updates. And it could be a way to check in and kind of be prepared before meetings as well. I know we use like a PAC report and a board report ahead of our commission meetings, and basically we just make it a point to update these before we meet. That way everyone has at least an idea of what's going on between the different initiatives and programs we have.
Trey, I would suggest 2 columns. One between short-term tasks and then another one between long-term tasks and resources needed, and put a time frame in there so that we have short-term tasks to be completed within, I don't know if we're going to say 6 months or 3 months, and then long-term tasks, we're going to have maybe 3 years. I don't know what that looks like, but just I think we need to make sure we kind of have a start and stop date, just for accountability. So we're not just on short-term tasks for the next 5 years. But I think overall, I mean, it's excellent. Thank you for even putting it together.
Thank you. Sorry, I won't do all of this while we're discussing, but is there any other thoughts or Aaron, I'm curious to kind of hear your reaction, because I know you were the one who really called for kind of organizing and really making sure we have a clear picture of kind of what we're doing. And
yeah, for sure. I think this looks great. I really like the breakdown between the short and the long term. I think that'll really kind of help us focus and might some of the short terms will kind of give us some steps that we make towards our long-term goals, as we kind of start to look at it. Like, I do wonder kind of about how, kind of how we're going to form some of these groups. I don't know if we're to the point of talking about that yet or not, but I think some of the tasks and the goals of these groups will be determined by the people who are a part of those groups. Recognizing that we kind of collectively had some of these tasks that we, or goals that we formed together, that are on here now. But I also kind of want to leave a little bit of room for the people on these specific work groups to kind of formulate how they do those. But all in all, I think this is really great, and I think it's super helpful and a good step towards working on a lot of these things. So thank you for putting that together, Trey.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron. Thanks for your call to action. I guess I will share this with you all in the SharePoint, and I'll send the link once I add it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Trey.
Any other? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Trey.
I will.
So that kind of on our agenda takes the work group spreadsheet. I guess we can check that off. The 2 bullet points above that, the working group policy for the working group for policy creation and the working groups for WAG. And then I guess also, I don't know if what Trey just shared with us also hits at A under C.
I didn't write that specifically within that, but it does kind of fall under that care committee health and kind of so I can add that, but I think that's also a separate discussion.
Okay. Well, Trey, do you want to lead that discussion?
I do not know if I'm prepared. Hold on, give me just a second.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I have anything more to add about that specific bullet point.
Okay.
You're talking about for policy creation about staff and care interaction consultation. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something to keep discussing. But I don't have any updates at this time. I think Janine might be able to add a little bit around that with her updates.
I have, Paula, if it's okay, I can just give some brief updates. And then I had just like a sentence about just how this can maybe work with how we move forward about staff and care members connecting about like upcoming things, and how do we address that, because things do come there are time sensitive things, but maybe we can filter them through and they aren't as time sensitive as we as we perceive. So but I can just give a few just equity related programming updates, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. So we'll definitely follow up with emails about this, but I just wanted everyone to sort of know about some just projects and things that are happening. So I think I briefly mentioned this, but now it's coming into focus a little bit more. The Porch, the writing nonprofit in Nashville, approached us a little bit ago about an idea for like an anti-racism writing workshop. And so we connected with Crossroad. We, kind of just started having conversations about that. And then so are now collaborating with Crossroads and the Porch on sort of a hybrid of the Crossroads anti-racism training that Metro Arts and Crossroads had provided in the past, but now bringing in the Porch and extending the program. So instead of like a 2-day intensive, it starts off with a 1-day overview of anti-racism. So this is like the Crossroads now typical, they 1-day Saturday school for of their anti-racism training, and then extends it out for 6 following Mondays of that Crossroads training. And so would love to now bring C.A.R.E into this conversation. There is a need specifically for, Crossroads is wonderful. We subject matter experts that we highly respected. They have a capacity issue though, and so we would like to pair, a racial equity subject matter expert, maybe someone in this Zoom meeting, with a writing instructor to kind of co-facilitate those 6 sessions. And they have 3 writing instructors, so we would love to work with 3 racial equity subject matter experts. And there are funds for this. We're still working out what those are, and we will follow up. But I just wanted to kind of reach out, say that it is a need that we're looking for, and I think a really cool opportunity for us to get C.A.R.E members involved in programming. So there's that. And so to give an update on REAL, the Racial Equity and Arts Leadership program that has kind of been on hiatus. So this year has been a planned hiatus year for evaluation and redesign. About last February, we put in an application to NEA, the National Endowment for the Arts, for $75,000 that would support projects that would happen after the first year of REAL. So in this kind of redesign, what we were thinking is that REAL would turn into, instead of a 1-year fellowship, would turn into a 2-year fellowship, with the second year being project-based. So we got word this week that we have been recommended for funding of $50,000 for those projects, which is very exciting. It's all, this is good timing, we think, because this is very much in our planning redesign year. We just kind of confirmed this alumni survey that we're sending out, to collect information from previous REAL participants, which will then shape the curriculum moving forward. But this is great. Good news for us that that we can expand that program and deepen it with with funding for projects based on the work of REAL. So obviously would love, kind of input from C.A.R.E on just the shaping of that as that comes into development. So I'm not sure if that'll be working groups or what, but just wanted to just flag that. Also connected to REAL, this is my last update. There was another funding opportunity that came up, which we're not going to do because it's too soon. The due date was in the first week of December, but it got us talking about Metro Arts and C.A.R.E's commitment to Indigenous people and raising up the narratives and stories of Indigenous people. The original, just to let you know, the original funding opportunity was a National Endowment for the Humanities collaboration grant. And so, again, we had some conversations between Metro Arts and C.A.R.E, the Native American Indian Association of Tennessee, a couple scholars who at Vanderbilt that work on different narratives regarding like decolonization. So one academic kind of focused on the diaspora, another scholar focuses on indigenous narratives. They're both from the history department. Anyway, we're not going to apply right now, but what it got us talking about is how can Metro Arts and C.A.R.E really commit to our just to what our stated, our stated priorities of lifting up Black and Indigenous and people of color narratives. And we were specifically referring to our statement in support of Black lives that we released in the spring and or earlier this year, and our equity and Metro Arts equity statement. And so we're just in conversations right now about that, and hopefully we are we're hoping that it can be a proposal for a future funding. Again, very much in the beginning stages of conversation. So C.A.R.E involvement and your subject matter expertise highly desired. So those saying, even just me saying that, I'm like, wow, this was a lot. So where would have been the appropriate, is it now that hopefully this was an appropriate time to bring this up? Was it earlier? So anyway, would love feedback on that policy creation of, how do we interact? What is, kind of what's appropriate? What's a good process for bringing this up to C.A.R.E? How does C.A.R.E interact with, just conversations that staff have with other partners in our work days, in our work weeks? So I guess I'll leave it at that. Those are my updates, but would love your feedback, and I guess I'll continue to facilitate this if anyone has something to say, and feel free to just unmute yourself and jump in or raise hands. I'm kind of looking.
Janine, this is Sarah. I just want to say this is really exciting to see the programmatic stuff that's happening. And so thank you for sharing all of that. And it's cool to appreciate, you pulling us in like, these ways to be able to support the work that's happening. So yeah, so I just want to say thank you for the update, all of that.
And I can follow up via email again to see about interest and capacity on the.
Janine, we didn't hear the last part of your sentence.
I have a toddler next to me. So if I will follow up via email to see about interest and capacity from committee members about those projects. I think with that, I'll pass it back to you, Paula. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good.
And I may have jumped the gun. Trey, the spreadsheet that you showed us, was that underneath the discuss work group organization, or was that different?
That was under this
Okay.
it was the work group spreadsheet.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure. Does anybody want to discuss any of these working groups people are facilitate? Or maybe Grace, if you can tell us kind of the rationale for what you guys were thinking when you added this to the agenda.
Yeah, so I think from the kind of discussion that stemmed out of Aaron's presentation last week, and also kind of just the entire meeting of kind of the capacity of the committee, I know we discussed as staff sort of trying to reflect on those things, what working groups might be useful from our end for things that we know are coming up or developing or that were brought up in the presentation. So I think the overarching point is probably, I think, our curiosity about how work groups can be assigned or should be assigned, or how y'all would like to organize that. I know there was a point that was brought up that, it can be very much an information deluge, when we're like, yeah, there's this document and this document and this document. And so if there is kind of like okay, well, we send information about this program or initiative to this working group team, even though it's available to everybody. So I think bringing that up was kind of, that was kind of the point of this. And I know particularly, for example, I can speak more directly, like, for example, a working group for the White Arts Administrators Accountability Group. I think, there has been some discussion and some very thoughtful calling in about C.A.R.E's involvement with that and what it should be. And so, I'd love to continue those conversations, and, keep people updated. Have initially tested the waters, and now we're kind of hoping to figure out what our role is, what it should be, how we should formulate. I've gotten some feedback from Ellen about C.A.R.E being involved in that. And so that might be something where that would be a useful working group to have those more nuanced conversations about that. And, Janine can speak to the Bipark Arts Administrators Network. But also, I think a lot of this conversation is, what Trey started with his really fantastic spreadsheet is how we kind of move forward and connect dots and documents. I think something we also talked about as a staff, I don't know exactly how this fits into our bullet points, but something that I've kind of gotten through feedback with this group, and Terry, I hope it's okay that I mention it, your kind of reflections that you sent in terms, at another point in terms of the grants program, but also your and Ellen's feedback on the grant guidelines. Maybe it's something where we could set up a kind of C.A.R.E is involved in Metro Arts process through sort of like a 360 review, so that you guys are kind of incorporated into our workflows and processes in the same way that, for example, the grants committee is involved in all the grants processes, and the public art committee is sort of braided into the public art processes, that y'all could sort of be sort of braided into just our general processes. And I know Janine had introduced me to the idea of a 360 review, and potentially that's something that would be helpful in connecting this committee to the work of staff.
So Grace, how would you foresee the 360 review working? So I would love input from people who have more experience from me. What I will say is that in general, around this time of year, especially in December, though this December may be a little different, we get a bit of breathing room to, kind of review what has happened, see what's moving forward going into the new year. It's, when guidelines start to be reviewed, when agenda planning for, the Arts Commission and the committees of, okay, we know this project is in the works, we know this is coming up. And so for a 360 review, it's something that we could potentially sort of incorporate C.A.R.E as part of, employee reviews and program reviews. And as we're sort of moving into the new year, having C.A.R.E just be a part of that. It is kind of a unique time of year where we have more information sort of consolidated before reality hits and things start coming up and it gets a little more complex.
Yeah, and,
But I was like,
and Grace, if I'm, oh, go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry.
no, please.
Well, we were just when Grace brought this idea up, we kind of talked about how it just might be an easier way to formalize what we're working towards in those different areas and kind of reporting those out kind of at the end of the year and at the end of the cycle. Because it does seem like we've got kind of all these tasks and goals that we're trying to work on, but at least having documentation, okay, throughout this year, these are the programs that, like Grace was saying, that we've worked on and looked at. So yeah, I think just hopefully kind of finding a way to make, that spreadsheet or those 4 categories into, a living, breathing thing that we can, share with commission and, I guess, request some type of action or follow up. Sorry for butting in there, Grace.
No. I thank you for bringing clarity, Trey. I actually really appreciate that.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, I just hope that makes sense of if that idea of kind of taking all of this and okay, we can work towards at the end of the year, we've got a review that we're going to do. We're going to look at what have we looked at all year and then report that to commission and then even public art or grants as well.
Okay, so more of a 360 review of the committee. Is that what I'm hearing? I just want to make sure I understand. Or a 360 review of Metro Arts.
I'll jump in. I want to say 360 review of Metro Arts, the agency.
Okay.
So yeah, involvement with community, involvement with staff, all the stakeholders kind of thing. And there could be a hub for that, through an equity lens.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, well, and I think Janine brings up a really good point too. There is a concern of, if we ask the community, oh, are we, hey, grantee, are we doing well? I feel like there is, I don't know that there is the relationship there currently to have sort of a truthful, honest conversation. And I feel like this committee is sort of dedicated to this work and also more a part of the community maybe might feel like a safer space to sort of gather this information. And so that we can kind of know, I think it was Jonathan last time that was saying, not necessarily, checking boxes or playing into the white supremacy ideal of measuring, but how do we know that we're, making an impact with our work, moving the needle forward, and really doing the work that we're setting out to do.
I have a question about kind of organizing that work and also kind of the sub points underneath the work group organization. On that, it looks like we've got three potential working groups plus ones from the spreadsheet that Trey had mentioned, and I'm just wondering if any of those overlap and can be merged in some way, because if we're as we're kind of looking at that, we've potentially got 7 working groups there, and we're going to have 1.5 people in every working group if we split that up evenly. So I'm just wondering if maybe there's some that fit inside of others, and some of these things could be included as goals and tasks for those other for the work groups to look at, and how we might kind of consolidate some of that so that we don't get overwhelmed by all these groups that we're being asked to be a part of.
I guess I'll go ahead.
Sorry, thanks. Sorry about that. I agree with you, Aaron. I think another thing to consider as well is if we view this through from the perspective of like what are the outcomes that we're seeking to yield, and really think about kind of where, you know, what are like the outcomes or the output, so that we understand kind of that what we're organizing is going to really help drive the objectives of Metro Arts forward, with the kind of the input of this group, using the analysis to help drive that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense, Jonathan.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the really nice spreadsheet that Trey put together, I mean, maybe even those 4 are the working groups, and, something like policy creation about staff and care interaction, might go under internal analysis and reflection, whereas, the working groups for the different arts administrators groups might be external because they're about building partnerships. And, the programs and projects could go under, whether they might be all programs and projects under one, or this project is more with this project is more with that. And that way it could kind of attach to the short and long-term goals that Trey pulled out.
I definitely agree that we can consolidate these within the 4, and then kind of go from there. Whenever we do get anything that we feel might fall into a work group, maybe we can just stop and say, okay, first let's divide it between these 4 groups, and then whoever's between those groups will then can go ahead and decide, is this something we have capacity to do? Is this in the right work group? And then we can divvy it up between those work groups as well.
Hey, this is Terry. I think, we've got to start somewhere. So I think that is as good a place to start as any. I mean, you've got the spreadsheet to help guide the structure. And then the work groups will chew on the details. And the 360 idea, I really like that. I just want to raise awareness to, if I'm understanding the concept that you're talking about, is to be able to review things that have happened in the last year, programs and issues and whatever areas, but with the or I would offer that it would include being able to recommend forward into the commission.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree with that, Terry.
Okay, thank you. I'm done.
So I guess, Trey, if you will then work on our working groups, and then if we're not already assigned to one, we'll just select which ones we want to work within. If that makes sense.
Yes, would it be helpful if I allowed everyone access to kind of just go in and add their name to the working group that they, or which section they, I know we kind of have some people who are already assigned to work groups, but
Absolutely.
I would
or
find
I can make those edits also if you all want to just let me know.
I would find it helpful to be able to go in. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna send you all the link right now. just so you have it.
Okay, perfect.
And for any working group that's already established that aligns with one that you have listed elsewhere, I mean, there's no reason those can't merge too.
Great idea, Terry. I think having those working groups would also help with our agenda, because each working group could have a bullet item and we can just kind of go through it so it's not scattered, so that we know we're focused on those outcomes.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Any other thoughts or discussion around the work group organization?
I don't, but I wouldn't mind kind of touching on that first one, the review data organization, just real quick, if nobody else has any questions about the work groups.
Okay.
Okay. So I feel like that first one, the review data organization and workflow changes, probably relates to kind of reorganizing SharePoint and SharePoint access. Terry, I know that you were having some trouble with access, and I just wanted to allow space for people to bring up any questions or concerns that they might have kind of lingering from that, and to check to be sure that everybody had access and was able to log in and see all that.
I know I did. I can't tell you what happened, so I'll try again. And if there is an issue, then I'll just reach out to Grace.
Grace, I will say your index file was very helpful that you sent. I kind of list everything. That was good. Thank you, Erin, for bringing that up. Janine, were there any grant guideline updates needed?
Sure, I'll just give a super brief overview. Ellen participated as a CARE member to provide comment about their guidelines working group that she had with Will and Terry. I thought it was super helpful and a really nice example of how CARE can interact with our other commission committees. I think that the things that were brought up by Ellen and the working group were really well received by the Grants and Funding Committee, and have been incorporated into kind of follow-up suggestions and ways we can improve not only like kind of larger like policy issues, but kind of just even smaller still important, but smaller, like just process administration things to streamline things. So it was super helpful. Just to give the follow-up, Grants and Funding Committee did not finish our conversation that we had. It was a 2-hour meeting, and we have agreed to another 2-hour meeting December 3rd from 1 to 3 p.m. And I'll just touch on the things that we're still going to be reviewing. So there's going to be the discussion of whether or not matching funds will be required for for next year's grants. So removal of the current matching funds requirement and how that will relate to the financial review. Touch on the re-verification process. Touch on project and operating funds allocations, so making the decision of whether or not to focus our next year's funds completely on operating. Also, eligibility application, just streamlining it. This is something Marissa, our new evaluation and program coordinator, is going to be talking about, and she's kind of in charge of our application and process. And then just panelists, goals and training, the scoring criteria and allocations formula. We'll be digging into that next time, and also just definitions, clarifying definitions that were brought up by CARE. And that's about it. We'll also be asking comment from all grantees via email. Grace is going to be coordinating that. Would love to invite either Ellen or another member of the working committee to that meeting. And anyone else also, I think, can, if you're interested as an observer, just let us know.
Thanks, Janine. Does anyone have any questions for her? Or Ellen, do you have anything to add?
There, I couldn't get myself unmuted, but no, I have nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. All right, so next up, HR issues, opening files of ex-employees, and then the public comment and notice policies. There was conversation, I know Grace, you said you and Ian could take this, but I'll just kind of put it out there. I know that there was a request made for exit interviews for the last, I think it was 3 years for an individual. And I just wanted to bring up or ask the committee to know that it's just not, so you'll be getting the entire employee file. And is that what the impetus is? Like, do you want the entire thing, or do you just want the exit interview? Because I think with Metro, you end up getting the entire document.
The request originally, well, as I made the request.
Okay.
So the request that I made was just for the exit interviews for all staff for the last 3 years. Just simply that, and not knowing, what form it happens, if it happens, how it happens. I just made the request. So yeah.
And Paula, if it's okay if I jump in, I think, at least from the staff perspective, this is not an if, but a how question. These are all public documents. Of course, we will get them to you. Ian is here to discuss the process, given that it's personal. I think because it has personal information, it has to go through a formal request process, which is a technicality, but we'll absolutely get it to you. I think our concern was we just wanted y'all's perspective on how we should handle giving this information. So I think what was brought up is just if there is someone who has moved on in their life or is in a professional situation, how do we handle discussing perhaps real valid concerns or anything that might be in their files without causing further harm, or say bringing up something that even though it's public, they might not want to deal with. So if you suggest that we reach out to these people, or if we discuss it in an anonymous fashion in a public meeting, I think that if I've not made it too convoluted, that is our question of just making sure that in passing on that information about people that we're being conscientious to their sort of general well-being.
So
Paul, this is Will. If I could respond to that. Grace, so let me just say that I think that the way that the Arts Commission functions with respect to staff, and in particular with a lens on equity, is very relevant to this committee. I don't think any individual employee is really relevant to our inquiry. If there are trends, there are negative situations, if we are biased against promoting women, for example, or whatever it might be from an equity perspective, I think we can discuss those. If we want to look at specific employee files to see any trends, any issues like that, I think they're completely relevant. If we're looking at a specific employee and whether or not that employee was treated fairly, and really diving into more of what I would consider to be an employment issue on one person. I don't think that's really appropriate for this committee. And let me just say that the Arts Commission as a group, and we've not voted on this recently, but we hire and fire an executive director who serves at the will of the Arts Commission. And if a majority of arts commissioners are not happy with the executive director, we tell her so, we give her an opportunity to approve, and we terminate her if she doesn't do so. But what we don't do is we don't get involved in individual employee issues underneath Carol and Vincent. So we give Caroline complete authority. We hire her to run the staff. And to the extent she does a good job, we support her. And then when she doesn't, we may have specific criticism about how it's handled. But what I don't like doing is getting involved in second guessing her decisions. So that's all to say, if there are trends that are biased against women or biased in the policy of race or anything like that, that's the business. I see that as the business of this committee. If there's a beef about what happens to an individual employee and it's really related to that employee, I don't know that that's appropriate for this committee. I see that as a backhand way of second guessing whether or not Caroline's done her job properly. And I'm uncomfortable with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so this is Terry. Thank you, Will. Let me expound a bit. The intention of this request was, even though it came from me as an individual, it was based on conversations within the Restorative Practices Working Group, with the idea that just what you have said, Will, that if there are trends, if there are patterns, if there's data, if there's something that needs to be looked at in terms of how something happened, how, not on a necessarily individual, because for the exit, again, knowing how exit interviews would be provided, I have to see the name. I need just the data. I need the detail, or we would need the detail to see how a particular situation was dealt with. Or do we see a pattern in how individual types or individual situations were dealt with? So it's just that was my only thought process around that. It's not to target. That's why I asked for 3 years for all staff. I wasn't looking for anyone in particular. I was just interested in the time frame, the quantity, and what does that tell us under the auspices of that working group.
Okay, good. Thank you, Terry. I appreciate you sharing that. So, Grace, in answer to your question, I think if we ended up discussing specific cases, one thing we could do is we can refer to individuals by, we don't have to refer to them by name. If we, and Terry, just think about how this will work. If we've got a specific file we want to look at and some information from it, perhaps we just refer to it as, refer to the person by the date or something like that. So although what we do becomes public knowledge and people can look at the files, they're already available. And so our discussion would be, I think, it would be less about the individual and more about the situation. And with what Terry's saying and what I'm thinking, it's not the kind of thing where we need to contact or reach out to any individual employee and let them know we're discussing employment practices of the Arts Commission. I just don't think we need to contact the former staff members.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
This is Ellen, and it seems like we should be able to do that without having to get their whole file, because that's kind of personal. I mean, I think that's why you just asked for the exit interviews, right, Terry?
Right, exactly. Yes, I'm not trying to examine an employee's entire life history within the employment, just the things that would fall under the purview of C.A.R.E. Things that C.A.R.E. should be concerned with examining. And if this kind of falls under the idea of the 360 review, it's kind of
absolutely. And I'm glad that y'all both clarified on that point. Yeah, and I'm sorry if the way I phrased that made it seem as if, there was some concern that C.A.R.E would be targeting a specific person or specific instance. Certainly what I got from the range of requested information was that it was looking for trends. And I think as staff, we think that's sort of fundamentally important to y'all's work. And I think y'all have answered our concern was mostly that staff passes along and promotes discussion of this in a way that's conscientious of those past employees and their current lives, if that makes sense. So I think y'all have clarified and explained that. So because staff has trust with this committee, and these are public documents, so we have no problem giving those to y'all. And then it's my understanding that y'all recommend we discuss sort of anonymously and in potentially, in trends. So if we see this trend is happening, C.A.R.E can sort of clarify, address, and work on that. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, like how any other working group would be looking at advertising and examining the detail. And it's not just about looking at the past, it's also about assurances for the future and the current. So that's another reason why this is a useful exercise. It's also an exercise in when C.A.R.E requests kind, how does that get handled? And how is it facilitated?
Absolutely. And Ian, could you speak a little bit to that process?
Sorry, that last part kind of broke up, Terry. I did not get to hear that.
It's the part of the intention of making this request was also to lay, and I'm paraphrasing myself now, was to lay the groundwork for how does C.A.R.E request any kind of potentially sensitive information. So that's all. Which how does because it's going to happen. We need to see data to determine trends of any kind. Then we'll need to request those things. So that there needs to be a process. Whatever that process is, we need to understand what it is, so that we can do it properly, get what we need, and then nobody's freaking out about it.
And that makes perfect sense. And I would love to have that kind of fluidity of providing information for you. And like Grace said, we're happy to provide you with that information. I also have quite a bit of demographic information of just general metro departments and how Arts Commission compares to various other small departments throughout Metro, if that would be helpful for your review.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'll work on, after this meeting, I'll work on providing you with your requests. And I will say that the employee interviews are generally considered just an additional tool for management to understand basically an employee's leaving the agency. So, and that could be related to various reasons why, but I guess if I'm happy to provide you with anything else if you have questions about the content of the exit interviews themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Can I sort of jump in with sort of a question just to get a better understanding? I mean, so fundamentally, I just want to kind of reflect back what I'm understanding, which is that, we're talking about wanting to identify trends, but what we're wanting to identify are what are the cultural issues within the Metro Arts workplace, right? Is that a good way of summarizing it?
Yes.
So I guess the one thing I would also want to, I would sort of hope that, Ian, from your role as head of HR, that you would be, a partner in those conversations And also, I think it would be helpful to understand if this is what this particular focus is on, help us understand, how those questions are being addressed as a matter of routine policy and practice in Metro Arts as well. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So that we have some kind of context for what we're looking at as well.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. I'm happy to kind of illustrate that if any of that comes, if you have questions about any of the documents that I provide.
I'm worried about us being biased in reviewing the documents. And I'm wondering, should we, while we will discuss anonymously and use, a date or something along those lines, but what about redacting any identifying information? It's kind of like, the resume test. You see one resume with one name and you got another resume with a totally different name, same qualifications, but one usually rises to the top because of just the name. So I'm wondering if we could just redact whatever the identifying information is, especially on the exit interview. And I guess, Ian, so I'm understanding that you'll just provide exit interviews, not the entire employee file, unless more questions are needed for clarification.
At this point, if that is what you're requesting, I'm happy to provide just the exit interviews. But yeah, if you prefer to have more information or contextual information around the exit interviews, that is also available to you as well.
Thank you.
Quick question.
So,
go ahead, Aaron. Sorry.
I want to be careful that we don't redact too much from those, because some of those like demographic information are things that we're specifically wanting to take a look at. And so I'm, redacting names and that sort of thing would help with that process. I think I can support that, but there is some information that could potentially be read as identifying information that I think we still want to review as well.
So if we approach this like healthcare does PHI, identifying information would be name, date of birth, social security number, address, and gender. Of those 5, in this context, name, date of birth, social security number, I would think should be plenty to at least start the conversation of, is this enough? Will what remains give us enough information, including contextual related information? So, because I do agree that we need demographic references, and I'm not having ever seen one. I don't know what it contains. It may just be the zip code. It may be something else that can be supplied. But I think if we approach it that way, we have some assurance that we're not exposing an individual, and we're just after the scenario, the context of the exit interview itself.
So you're saying eliminate the name, date of birth, and social? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I will say that social is the only part of basically I cannot provide you with any sensitive information. So that would be considered part of the employee file. Anything
Right.
that
That's
contains
what I'm
that. So
yeah.
But everything else that's considered, even personal identifiers, are generally considered acceptable. But if in this case you're asking to redact it, and that's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that gets to the space where Grace was talking about just the staff wanting to protect those who have left and not having any issues going forward. for whatever reason. Okay, so I guess then, Ian, the next question for you, my friend, would be to ask, when do you think you could have that material to the committee?
With
Or
the
to the working
additional,
group. I'll say to the working group.
with the to the working group, it should be fairly quick. Probably by Friday end of day, assuming I can redact everything easily. That would be the worst part. I'd have to actually review how hard it is to redact the files, and that would probably be where it is. But fairly quickly, I'd say by Tuesday of next week at worst.
I think that's sufficient. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ian.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.
Ellen,
Thank you for having me.
I have another question. Are you saying the working group for the, which working group? The restorative practices?
Yes, because that's where
that contains staff as well. Do you really want current staff to look at exit interviews of past staff?
Probably not.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So I was just thinking maybe if, I don't know, there's 2 C.A.R.E member on it. So yeah.
I'll definitely remove myself from that and allow you guys to look at that alone.
And I don't think the whole C.A.R.E group doesn't need to see it unless there's a trend that they see that they want us to discuss further. So it'd just be the 2 people on the working group, correct? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
That's what I'm thinking, Ellen. Yeah. That's why I corrected. Working group, not committee.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And then Terry, while we're at this, do you want 3 years or why did you pick 3 and not 5 years?
It was just random.
Okay.
Seemed like a good place to start.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Any other questions or comments regarding this subject? All right, we are about 12 minutes out from our stop time. So Grace, if you could let us know about the public comment and notice policies.
Yes, and this may be a conversation. This was kind of an initial conversation that was moving into continued discussion regarding sort of not only what we put out with our public notices, but how we put them out and to whom we're reaching, and the various considerations that go into that. So just kind of after our conversations, just to review, we do send our public notice of meetings out to the email list that has media, council, commission, staff, and y'all. It's on nashville.gov with the meeting information and the agenda, as well as our website. But I know I would love, I think it's 2-pronged. One, there's a discussion of how y'all would like public comment to be set up in this particular committee. So the commission requires in-person comment for each action, or live comment for each action item. Whereas committees, what we do currently in the kind of virtual setting is we accept email comments. And so if I was to ever read one of those, it would, or receive one of those, I would read it to y'all. And then I know there'd been some question about how those are received. But also if y'all would like to receive public comment in a different way, if you would like to have a section of the agenda that's public comment, And then the second question would kind of be, in general, with our public meetings, how does Metro Arts reach the communities that we want to serve and make sure that we're providing opportunities to everyone? And then, sorry, I missed one bit of information. I know y'all had asked if there was the possibility of opening up a specific public comment inbox that could be sort of jointly accessible. And I did just discuss it with Ian. There was concerns. There's an additional cost to running another inbox. And then also the secondary concern of one of the benefits of having public comment emails go to a working Metro Arts email address or like a specific address is that people then know, if they made a public comment, okay, this is how I reach out with any other questions about anything else. But in sort of response to that, we have sort of shifted, instead of public comment going to my inbox, it goes to the general arts inbox, and it has a specific subject line. So I'd love y'all's feedback on that. And then also how, now we're getting to the end of the meeting, so how you would like to sort of discuss and handle going forward, both public comment for these meetings and then moving forward on sort of making sure that we're reaching out to a wider range of Nashville communities with our notices so that they know that they have a voice in our meetings.
So to address the second part about the wider reach of the opportunity to give public opinion, would that be included in anything or everything that goes out to the public?
I'm so sorry, Terry. I don't know if you could hear my cat, but he was quite loudly. Would you mind repeating that question?
Well, I was just, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but it just seems like if we want to get the information out, that public comment is available in whatever scenario, that it is just included on everything that is sent out informationally from Metro Arts. For every meeting, every, the newsletter, the grants, documentation, anything that is related to Metro Arts should have that, have a blurb about if you would like to make public comment or if you would like to, whatever.
Right. And I wonder if we can change. I know in our Arts Alert, we've started publicizing the meetings. I wonder if there could be a change in the language to emphasize public comment. And maybe even something like putting a line in our email signatures.
Sure. I mean, yes, at any point of contact with the wider community, if you want them to know, then put it in front of them.
Right. That makes sense to me. And this may be part of a larger community engagement initiative that I think, we've discussed with Metro Arts, reaching out into wider communities. I think we might also ask for some support in also identifying what our blind spots are and who we're not reaching out to. Because I think that there's a concern that we have blinders on in some way, and so we're not necessarily even in communication with to share our newsletters or emails with certain communities.
Right, and that's part of the purview of C.A.R.E.
Yes.
Help to examine those gaps and recommend how to fill them.
So this falls into the category of a work group, right? I mean, it's already identified, right?
I would think so.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, just to note that this is an area where we can actually develop a communications plan to address the questions at hand.
And work with the appropriate internal areas to be sufficient, the least impact in terms of the staff person that would need to do it. To take all of that in and create a program that serves Metro Arts and its purpose and the community and its engagement.
Absolutely.
So it looks like we may have just lost Grace. Hopefully we'll get her back. While she's away, do you want to, we don't really have time to discuss additional topics of discussion. And I think that the staff has pretty much updated us. If you have additional topics of discussion, will you email them to Grace? And then that way we can make sure that they get on the agenda for next time. I'm going to have her kind of, I would like to see on the agenda this 360 evaluation and what that's going to look like. And then also, how are we going to work through this communication plan? Hey, Grace, we got you back.
Sorry, technical difficulties, y'all.
No problem. But Grace, I've asked everybody to email you any additional topics of discussion that we can't cover tonight that you can make sure it gets on our agenda for next month. And then also working around the 360 evaluation and what that's going to look like for the organization. And that may be something that we all chime into because, I see that and I get excited because I'm weird. Okay. Do you guys want to go ahead and schedule our next time or confirm our next time?
That sounds good.
Okay. I think I have it on my calendar already for Wednesday, December 2nd.
That's what I have.
That's what I have too.
Okay. Does that time still work well for everyone? 4 o'clock?
The regular.
It's the regular 4, but should we go to 5? Would you want to just stay with this 5 o'clock space?
Either time is fine with me.
I think there was issues with somebody getting off from work. I think we should stay with the 5 o'clock. We'll probably be on WebEx again.
Yes, just to confirm, because I don't know if I officially passed this along to y'all, the virtual order is extended until December 27th.
Might as well make it till March 15th.
I was going to say June 2021. Okay. Okay, so 5 o'clock on December 2nd. Okay. I think based on our time, we're at 6:30, so I'm going to say if this completes the business of this meeting and call us adjourned for the evening.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, have a
Thank
great
you so
night.
much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
You know,